Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
How is everyone?
Good.
Awesome.
Trying to get into the festive spirit.
You know, Marianne, it is officially let's circle back after the holiday season. Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Good morning, Commissioner Reed.
Good morning, everyone. Happy holidays to everybody.
Happy holidays to you.
Same to
Yay.
you, sir.
I did not see anything in board docs about this, the agenda or anything, so I looked at it last night. I didn't see anything.
Did you
Saw policy, but I didn't see operations.
go under if you go under 2023? It's show make sure you're signed in, but if you go under 2023, it's under the policy committee agenda.
Okay, I didn't. I was looking for operations. So I didn't. Yeah, I saw policy, but I wasn't looking for I wasn't looking for policy. I was looking for operations. I didn't see.
No, I'm saying the operations material is under the policy, under the subgroup of 2023.
Okay. So I'm not prepared.
It's okay. We'll review it together.
See if they can segregate that for me in the future.
Okay. I'll reach out to Dr. Jenkins.
Yeah, I just jumped on and I was hearing the end of that. So what happened? Is it in board docs?
Actually,
It's not.
yeah, he's having issues finding the material for committee.
See, I looked and I saw policy for today, but I didn't see operations for today. I looked at it yesterday.
Yeah. I'm in there and I see it, but I'm Vice Chair, you can see it as well. And
Okay, maybe it's me. Okay.
okay, it could be either. I'm just checking. I was like, because I also have a different view. So hopefully, yeah, I see it in there now. I don't know if you want to click in again, and I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I check.
Let me go get it.
Okay, we're gonna get started when Commissioner Reed comes back. I don't see. Oh, I see Commissioner Coy. Good morning, Commissioner Coy. And
Good morning.
so Commissioner Mohammed. How are you, Commissioner Coy?
Good. This is Commissioner Rohan.
Sorry, did you just say something, Commissioner Coy? Oh, okay. Okay, so we are going to get started. Good morning, everyone. This is Committee Chair Chantel Roberts. I would like to welcome you all to the December 19th meeting of the Operations Committee. If you have not done so yet, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call entirely. Additionally, if you're not a board member or the CEO and her staff, please turn off your video. I will now read a roll call of the board to see who is on the call. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. Commissioner Andrew Coy.
Hey, you're here.
You are here.
I'm not muted, but I was like, I just saw him. Okay, I will mute.
He may be having I still see him on. Commissioner Reed.
Present. Yeah, I do see it now. Didn't see it yesterday.
Okay, good.
Okay, good.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Coy is having audio issues, but he is present per the chat. And Commissioner Muhammad. I don't think I see Commissioner Muhammad on just yet. Okay. For public notification, members of the public who would like to provide public comment to this committee can do so by signing up beginning at 9 a.m. the Thursday before the meeting until 5:00 p.m. the Monday before the meeting date. Individuals or groups interested in providing comments to the committee may sign up one of three ways. One, you may contact the board office at 443-642-2095 or visit the board office at 200 East North Avenue, room 406, or email the board office at schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us. Up to 5 individuals will be given the opportunity to provide public comment to the Operations Committee. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes. All public comments should address operations-related issues, and sign-up is not permitted the day of the meeting. In addition, the chat function during our virtual meetings will not be used as a tool for gathering feedback or answering questions from the public. If you have follow-up questions or feedback and did not sign up in advance to provide them during the committee meeting, please send them to schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us, and the board office staff will be able to provide you with a response. Now that we have covered that, we can prepare for our first presentation of the day, which is fiscal year 2024 supplemental appropriation university partners. Good morning.
And
Hi, Mary.
information. Okay, I'm sorry. This is Mary Ann Cox, the Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I'm here to present information for your review, considering a proposed FY 2024 supplemental appropriation for our university partners. So I'm going to try and share my screen.
You did. We see your email, Marianne.
Oh, okay. All right, then. Here.
Mary Ann, it's
all right.
Jonathan. Would
There-
you like me to share my
Yes,
screen?
please. That would be very nice. Thank you. I
You got
had
it.
it
Give me one
in a
second.
different place. Okay.
Mary Ann, would you like me to start with the agenda summary, or do you want the supporting documentation?
The agenda summary first, please, followed by the support documentation. Okay, this request relates to a request for board approval to use $5 million of unassigned fund balance relating to the amounts owed and unpaid from the Baltimore City Health Department for nursing services that were provided by city schools in FY 23 and 24. So we have in this meeting, we have programmatic people related. That would be Dr. Courtney Pate and Kim Coleman, and they can provide programmatic information on the use of this funding. I will say that we place money. There is a board policy, DIG, relating to fund balance that indicates how money is placed within the various facets of the fund balance. That keeps us in compliance with GASB 84, which that's a Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which indicates how we should report our use of fund balance. The source of this funding is a balance of $5,002,900 included within the FY 2023 general fund unassigned fund balance of $82,891,000. So we are proposing that this $5 million be funded by that unassigned fund balance that is reflected on our financial statements. The document that is the agenda item title, it indicates over the past 3 years, the Baltimore City Health Department has experienced vacancies across a number of school health suites, and as a result, they asked city schools to provide health suite services at an increasing number of schools. So Dr. Pate can address why, how much we've gone from providing services at 12 schools in FY 2022 to 19 in 2023. And then we will be seeking reimbursement of those funds from the Baltimore City Health Department, at which time we will replenish the amount in unassigned fund balance. So, Dr. Pate, is there any information that you would like to add?
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Pate, Office of Health and Specialized Student Services. This year, currently, we are controlling school health suite services at 35 schools. As a result of the university partnership, in the coming weeks, the university partners will be taking over assignment of health suite services at 15 of those 20 schools. However, we still have to pay for the services that we're utilizing through our nursing agencies, in addition to making sure that the university partners have POs in place and are able to spend down as they provide services as well. With that being said, we were banking on the reimbursement from the health department to cover these charges. And seeing as how we don't currently have a contract with them, that is not unfortunately going to take place before the time that we need this money, so that our students can continue to get the services that they need.
So are there any are there questions?
Thank you so much, Marianne and Dr. Pate. Commissioner Coy, and then I have a follow-up after you.
Yeah, my question is just relating to any concerns that exist about this money making its way from Baltimore City Health Department to city schools, ultimately. I know the timing is not what is ideal, but any ultimate concerns?
You want me to help, Courtney, Dr. Pate?
Go for it, Allison.
Yeah, we've been in a conversation for a long time about the resources for the health department. So it was the cost, as Dr. Pate said, for last year, for the 19 health suites we covered last year, and then the 35 this year. Yeah, it has taken a very long time. We've been in negotiations for a long time. So yeah, we do have concerns.
So that the use of this supplemental appropriation will place, from general fund unassigned fund balance, will make the funds available to the special ed office to allow them to pay for these university partners during FY 2024, correct?
It would be the Office of Health and Specialized Student Services to pay for the services for the remainder of this school year as we get this project off the ground.
My question was just around any perspective or line of sight into the repayment timeline.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you on that. I mean, we are continue to be in negotiations with the city about payment under the Kerwin legislation. Counties are required to continue the same level of support for health services that they provided the year prior to passage of Kerwin, and so, of course, BCHD had been the longtime provider of health services in city schools. And as they, have had challenges filling vacancies, Kerwin also requires that all health suites have registered nurses. The health department has been over time trying to replace, they have a model that's not registered nurses, it's nurses aides. And so over time, they've been trying to replace nurses aides with registered nurses, but the Kerwin passage and that new requirement kind of came in at the same time as the global pandemic exacerbated an already existing nursing shortage. So they've had a hard time filling those positions. In the last 3 years, for the first time since I've been in city schools, we've then had the health suites that initially didn't have any coverage. And so 3 years ago, we had to find coverage for 12, and then last year it was 19, and then this year it was 35. And so we've used our nurses agencies to cover that hole. What we're trying to negotiate on is the amount that the city has to continue to pay under Kerwin to continue the amount of services they provided the year prior. What we're trying to negotiate is what portion of that is coming to us to cover this year 35 health suites that we're covering, or the 19 we covered last year, and that's where the dispute is.
Okay, I think it's a reasonable ask, just for us for tracking purposes, at least, to just kind of have line of sight around what that reimbursement looks like, just to ensure continuity of our operations, because we don't want to find ourselves in a bad financial position and, just covering what we need to secure for the students. Because we've done great work, 12 to 19 to 35, and just ensuring that we have, what we need, right? Commissioner Reed, any remarks, comments, questions?
I guess my only question is, Mary Ann could probably answer this best. I mean, it's a zero-sum game, so if we're paying $5 million, there's no complications or duress someplace else because of the money being shifted, right?
No, actually, city schools currently has a certain balance, an unassigned fund balance. So we are asking the board's permission to use that funding temporarily while we await the resolution of this situation with the Baltimore City Health Department. When we get this funding from the Baltimore City Health Department, it'll be recorded as other revenue. It will flow through to unassigned fund balance and replenish it.
And how big is the unassigned fund balance to date?
The unassigned fund balance is $82.9 million. So this is $5 million of that.
Thank you.
And remember that this is the amount of money that by board policy we have to keep on hand in order to make sure that we have resources if there's some interruption with payment. So this is the 3 to 7%, Mary Ann? That's
yes,
required in board
that is
policy?
the range, from 3 to 7%.
7%.
Yes.
And so this is dipping into that. We try to keep that, that we obviously are required to do it under board policy. And so, and just good practice, we want to make sure there's resources there if for some reason there is some disruption in payment. So it is an important amount of money. It's not, we don't take lightly taking resources out of there in order to pay for this. But at the same time, this is these are services we have to provide our young people. And we also really are enthusiastic about this new partnership with the University Partners, to hopefully, improve the way that young people are receiving services in our health suites, and also help us build a pipeline. I mean, the other real advantage about these university partnerships is that we're going to work with them to potentially provide, they can advise us on just best practice. There's 3 university partners with expertise, so we can use, they can be good partners in helping us think through best practice. The other is that they can give opportunities. We're going to work with them to develop opportunities for our CTE students to be able to have experience in our own schools, so that's a great, opportunity for them to get a real world experience. And then the third benefit is that the students who are nursing students at those 3 universities get exposure to working at our schools. And so it creates a pipeline possibility, both in terms of those students maybe choosing to then work permanently in our schools, as well as our CTE students potentially working in school-based health and then being future candidates that we could hire.
Is Coppin one of those schools? The reason I ask, because Coppin was a nursing school at one time.
Yes.
Okay.
So Coppin, Morgan, and Hopkins.
Thank you.
As a side note, the range of our unassigned fund balance, as Allison noted, is between 3 and 7%. When this $5 million comes out, it decreases it from 5.9 to 5.5%. So we still have some money there for the intended use of that, which is, taking care of ups and downs from the economic climate and other unexpected and unprepared type activities that we have no control over.
Commissioner Reed, that
Great, great job. Thank you, ladies.
Okay.
thank you
All
so
right,
much.
so,
Are we going to transition to the next?
yes,
Okay,
please, we have a second supplemental appropriation for consideration by the Ops Committee, and that relates to a supplemental appropriation of $692,050 from general fund assigned fund balance to the capital projects funds for facility upgrades at the administration building here at North Avenue. Um, uh, we just want to note that this $692,000 is included within the assigned fund balance amount of 6.5 million for the district office project. So this was held in assigned fund balance as we close the year at the end of FY 2023. Just a reminder on our supplemental appropriations, the CEO, as the board designee, has the authority to place items in assigned fund balance. But when we want to transfer the money from general fund assigned fund balance to the places where it will be spent, usually capital projects fund, we always ask the board's review and approval first. So that's what we're doing here for this $692,000 for facility upgrades. And it's my understanding that we have staff available for, Michael McBride is available to answer any programmatic questions that you might have. Oh, yeah, if you could go, there is one more file that is the supplemental, central office building improvements. It says what the 692,000 is being used for, Jonathan. Yes, that's it. Thank you. So if you want to review that, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Coy, I saw you pop on. Did you have a question for the team?
I think more just a comment to say, I see these various spaces and can imagine what some of the improvements might need to be, but they are needed, and just underscoring, emphasizing that, while there are certainly a lot more dollars that are and have and will always be spent on the schools, ensuring that things that the central office do are maintained and are improved is really important. And so I feel like this is a very reasonable amount for that purpose, and appreciate the way that you've broken them down, and do know that that each of these spaces would benefit from what has been outlined here. And it's overdue, frankly. I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that I appreciate that it's all, and I also appreciate that it's that many other things have been prioritized. I do want to just call that out and recognize that, but I think it's due time for these.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Just a point of clarification for me. Where is the Training and Staff Development Center?
It's 301.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Michael, you go.
No worries. Hi, it's Michael McBride. Good to see everyone. It's as Allison began to say, it's 301, and we're actually going to convert it to what we're calling a Training and Staff Development Center, because we can now we're designing it so that you can actually divide the space into 3 separate areas if needed. So it optimizes use by doing that.
So it's a space. These are all fairly, they're all, public facing spaces. To Commissioner Coy's point, we always do prioritize putting resources in schools first, but these are more public facing spaces. And so 301 is a space that, the board uses for executive committee. It is one of the few larger conference rooms we have. We don't have very many large conference spaces. So whether you have large internal meetings or large meetings with external partners, it's one of the few spaces we have. And then we've used it for things like Dr. Pate, who was just on, used it to great effect in the fall as a vaccine clinic. So these are spaces that we do. So it's close to where we welcome our newcomer families and enroll them in school. So it was a great location to have families come from their enrollment down to be able to get the vaccines that they needed. So it's not in great shape, that space, but it is a space that has a lot of uses for staff meetings, for public meetings, meetings with members of our public, and for public purposes like the vaccine clinic.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed, did you have any questions?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, Allison and Marianne, for the presentation for both of those
Thank you.
items. We can transition to our next presentation, school food services. Saw Liz on. She's still.
Good morning.
Good morning, Liz.
All right. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present today on behalf of the Food and Nutrition Services Department. My name is Elizabeth Marchetta. I'm the Executive Director, and this annual update provides just an overview of our prior year activities and some things that we have planned for the current school year. So the objective of this, presentation I just talked about, here I would like to highlight the beautiful food art by one of our cafeteria managers, Patricia Newman, down at Curtis Bay Elementary School. She really goes above and beyond, so I always like to give her a shout out. This presentation will talk about, why school meals are important and we're doing the work that we are doing. Some metrics for accountability that we use in our department. I'll touch lightly on the wellness and sustainability, which you'll hear more about this year in terms of the revision for the district wellness policy. And then I'll end kind of reviewing some of our farms to schools activities. So this slide shows the alignment with various board priorities, really focusing on programs and resources to support our students to be successful. So when really thinking about why school meals are important, I want to highlight that our department includes over 550 team members that really work everywhere on the food chain, from seeds to the fork. So in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see some second grade students at a field trip at Great Kids Farm making some baskets with, it looks like some with some herbs. And then we have some youth work students that are there that stay at the farm over the summer and really learn all the ins and outs of maintaining the farm. We also have our staff at our various schools in these corner pictures that you can see serving the holiday meal. And then more recently, we've had our district's food truck that was designed by students out there and helping us figure out ways to serve meals in a mobile format. So what we do really does go beyond the actual plate of what students are eating every day. But we do know that that is really the heart of our operation, and that school meals on average are healthier than meals from any other food source that really students and adults have access to. So there are links to some more peer-reviewed research on it, but really overall we know that school meals are not just important for a sound body, but are really important in terms of academic achievement and just promoting community food security and alleviating poverty. Beyond, USDA's school meal program, we have certain things that are really important to us. So, first and foremost, we need to make sure that the meals we're offering are in compliance with USDA's dietary guidelines for Americans, and the guidelines they set specifically for school meals, which I'll talk more in depth about. We really do strive to accommodate special dietary needs for our students and promote transparency around the nutrition and allergen information. Additionally, we want to promote whatever strategies we can to get students to consume school meals. We would rather have students, eat a healthy meal because we know it will support them being successful than, bring something from home or purchase something that might be less healthy. There's a part of participation that kind of really goes beyond the consuming of the food, but the school really is the school cafeteria is our largest classroom. And so we want students to learn about healthy, lifelong eating habits. So consuming more fresh fruits and vegetables. Beyond the school meal program, we really do try to look at our relationship and how we spend money. So we do try to focus our procurement on local food and implement a variety of farms to school strategies. And then lastly, as the largest food chain in the city of Baltimore, and the only one focused exclusively on our students, we really do want to reduce the food waste that is generated through our operation, as well as the other, waste, and consider the impact of what we're doing beyond the kitchens and cafeterias. I'm going to talk a little bit about our meals and the USDA meal programs. In city schools, we offer a variety of meal programs. We offer USDA breakfast, lunch, after-school snack, and supper, free to all schools that are eligible. We have a fresh fruit and vegetable grant program that's the eligibility list is generated by the state annually, but we usually have over 90 schools that participate in that. During the summertime, we will offer free meals to any building that is open for summertime use. And then the last thing that is not managed by our department, but I think is important to reference when talking about food supports available to our community, is the Maryland Food Bank that is managed by the Office of Community Engagement and really helps to facilitate the food pantry programs in a variety of our schools. So. Since the pandemic, we've really been adjusting to a new normal. While there were a lot of waivers that were issued around school meal programs during the pandemic, a lot of those have expired. So there are certain things that we were allowed to do, like allow students to take meals off-site and take them home, or serve multiple meals at a time so students could take home maybe breakfast and lunch. We cannot do those things anymore. There are some things that have remained since the pandemic, like increasing food costs and just some supply chain issues. We saw a lot of consolidation of the items that were offered to school districts during the pandemic. And so we've really been trying to figure out how to offer more variety to our students in a more limited market. We're not quite where we want to be in terms of returning to pre-pandemic meal participation. But this slide really shows, the past 6 years of participation and that, we're closer than we have been since the pandemic. So as of last school year, we had 55% of our enrolled students eating lunch every day. And that was about 41,000 lunches being served. 17,000 breakfasts, 7,000 snacks, and over 5,000 suppers every day. Over the course of the school year, that was more than 12 million meals served. So I really just, am always constantly amazed at how big the operation is. And these meals really do add up over the course of the school year. I'm going to speak a little bit about USDA's guidelines. So on the left, you will see a graphic that is the USDA lunch program in a nutshell. We have to offer those 5 food groups: a fruit, a vegetable, milk, whole grain, and protein item at every lunch. We are able to use a program called Offer versus Serve, where students don't have to take all 5 of those items. They only have to take 3 items, and one of the items they take has to be the fruit or vegetable. So this allows students to exercise choice. We do offer, different entree options, but, they don't have to take the full meal. We don't want students to take things that they're not going to eat. So the first part of reducing food waste is allowing them choice to reject what they're not interested in. But we do require they get the fruit or vegetable. And that is really kind of at the crux of the meal program. The picture in the middle you'll see is an example of our holiday meal that was served last Thursday. So we have to, you can see how the components are broken down on this tray. And I just want to give the context that to provide these items, we receive a reimbursement for the current school year of $4.50 per lunch. So there's a link there to the federal rates that is based on. In addition to that, overview of the tray, there are certain caloric, fat, and sodium levels that we have to meet depending on the grade level of the student. In addition to that, there are vegetable subgroups. So a dark green vegetable is not the equivalent of a red-orange vegetable. And we have to plan to offer those items in certain quantities and volumes each week. And if, say, you don't get your broccoli order and you sub it for carrots, that you won't necessarily meet the nutritional guidelines for that week. So that menu could, be invalidated by that simple switch, which, really is a vegetable for a vegetable. But I say that only to illustrate the level of complexity and seriousness with which USDA takes, the importance of providing a variety of fruits and vegetables to students. So we're not just serving French fries to students as a vegetable. USDA also requires all of our food purchases to be made from domestic growers or processors. There are certain source materials that might be sourced internationally, but they will go into our storerooms during their reviews, and they will look to see the source for all of the items and boxes and items that are there. There are certain cases where we are allowed to, buy outside of the U.S. Bananas is one example. There's very few domestic bananas grown. So that is one sort of exemption. But, USDA is very focused on supporting the American agricultural industry. Beyond USDA's guidelines, we have a couple of our own. So we really do try to promote fresh fruits and vegetables, and students can get as much as they want. They can go back, and we are also, trying to promote share tables to even get that beyond there. But students should know that they can have as much fresh fruit as they want. We locally source our milk, bread, and produce. And in the 23 school year, we spent over $4 billion on locally sourced items. So that was around 20% of our total spend on food that year. And there's a table in the index that shows that broken down. We have also tried to really remove high fructose corn syrup from our menu, and we have none in any of our bread or flavored milk products. We're always looking at trying to reduce the number of items and ingredients in our processed foods that we offer. So, artificial colors is another thing that we're trying to get out of there. We have a whole grain rich menu and no pork. And to look at the tray that's pictured here, I just want to highlight that that tray, that utensil, the napkin, and the milk carton that is served on are compostable. So we are trying to look at reducing the amount of plastic packaging to reduce, the impact on the environment. We've had some very exciting new menu items this year. And I would say the runaway star of this has really been the entree chicken Caesar salad that's been offered in high schools on Thursdays. But there's a variety of things, and we're really excited after many years of shortages and reduced different types of menu items. We're now able to dependably source enough servings for certain new items so that we can really expand what we're offering to students. So not all of these have made it onto the menu quite yet. Some are coming in January. We have a 4-week menu cycle. And we, really kind of add new items in December and then again in the new school year. So we're excited about these. Looking at satisfaction, last year we were able to have a question on the family survey, and you can see the breakdown in this pie chart. So we certainly have room for improvement in terms of satisfaction with parents around school meals. And, it's not really an apples to apples comparison, but I just put some of the past survey there from the district climate survey. And we are looking at more ways at, gathering data and informing our menu development process. So in terms of accountability, really, we want to make sure we are first serving safe meals. Second, we're serving quality, healthy meals, and that we are providing great customer service. So while we can certainly get phone calls and emails, and we will follow up on those, we've actually launched a school meals feedback form that's listed here, which really guides people through some of the most important type of information gathering that we're trying to get when we try to address complaints or compliments. We always really do taste testings for new menu items, so we don't want to have healthy trash cans. We want healthy students, and if students aren't eating what we're serving, it's just gonna, go right into the trash. So we try to make sure anytime we're gonna put a new menu item on, it is met approval from students at multiple locations throughout the city before it actually goes on to the district-wide menu. On our website, you can actually find a full, month's worth of menus, as well as detailed nutritional information for every item. And it gives you the ability to sort out for the most common allergens. So on the menu that is listed here, the parent has selected peanut and fish allergies. And so the items that are redlined there are the items that cannot be eaten. Beyond that, for students that have dietary modifications required, we have a form which we ask clinicians to fill out that helps us give more information on foods to omit and suggested substitutions, as well as any texture requirements. This form is available on our district website. And families can fill it out and return it to their cafeteria manager, who will work with the school nurse and our district dietitian to make sure we're able to come up with a menu that meets that student's needs. Beyond what I've talked about so far, there's a variety of other ways we're trying to engage with students and families. So annually in Back to School Night, we've been offering taste testings of our supper menu. So this past year, we had 66 events and over 8,000 meals that were served. Our dietitian and menu planning team have been engaged with a variety of student groups this year, including the No Boundaries Coalition that's pictured on the right, who went to Ocean City in September for the Maryland School Nutrition Association food show. So vendors were really excited to have students there. And it really is mostly focused at school nutrition department teams, but everyone was extremely excited to have our students there trying products for us, and they all completed a scorecard and returned it to us. So we're looking at those, as we're making changes for this year and next year. We are actually planning to have our own vendor fair at city schools. So more information will be coming in the new year around that, just to try to give more students from more schools an opportunity to try foods available from our various vendors. And then we've been exploring more structured engagement with the Student Congress of Baltimore City and met with them a few weeks ago, actually. Beyond that, we have the Baltimore City Health Department. They do 2 inspections every year in each of our kitchens and monitor the hazard analysis and critical control point plan to make sure our staff are serving food in alignment with food safety regulations, that our food is never going out of temperature, and that they're using all of the various processes to reduce any food safety risks. Beyond that, USDA and the Maryland State Department of Education come out and do reviews. So last spring, we actually had a review of the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program. And then we are currently engaged in the after school snack and supper review, as well as our summer food service review. And then lastly, we also are responsible because we are linked to the USDA and the National School Lunch Program for implementation of the district's local wellness policy. So there is also triennial assessment happening for that this year. So I won't talk a whole lot about wellness other than to say it extends beyond the Department of Food and Nutrition, and it sets guidelines for health education, physical education, physical activity, behavioral health services, and school-based wellness activities, in addition to nutrition education and nutrition standards. The Health and Wellness Council meets regularly and includes both internal staff as well as external people and organizations whose work fall in this area. So the meetings are open to anyone who wants to attend, and you can email Ann Rosenthal there if you would like to be added to this meeting invitation. The district and the Wellness Council are in the process of revising the district's wellness policy. So I won't talk about it more than just to say you will be hearing more about it this school year. I'm going to end by talking about our Farms to Schools activities. This team has been doing amazing work and have a variety of ways in which they interact with our students, teachers, and community. So it's very exciting to see what they have been able to offer and grow in. So the core of the work is really around the fact that food education, instills lifelong healthy habits for students, and we want to support that. So our work goes beyond just providing the healthy meal, but looking at ways to support students' excitement about food and consuming healthy foods. So the team focuses on student educational programs, school support and professional development, and family and community engagement. Some of these photos really show the variety of activities that they engage. So some of them are on site. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, a cooking demo that's happening at the farm. There's also the farms going to the school. So some of you might have been able to see the goats at North Avenue the other week. They made a stop here on their busy schedule, getting involved with the farm and implementing these activities does not require schools to necessarily get on a bus and go to the farm, although we love to do that. But there's various ways to support this at every school. In the past year, we saw a small increase of about 500 over the prior year, and we anticipate another very large increase for this current school year because we've added a few food corps fellows, but our programming really focused on in-person programs, so trips to the farm, having summits. We have high school summits that are very exciting, things happening in the classroom, so our staff might go out and engage in the classroom and bring seedlings to a school. And then there's learning opportunities and a summer camp that is free, all free. We have a variety of virtual programs that really allow people that are not able to physically get to the farm or host the farm in their school to engage with the farm. So there's a virtual field trip, and the farmer can always FaceTime you and bring you to see the goats yourself. So and then the last thing is we have activity kits. So those are materials that we will give to specific classrooms. So there's like a mushroom kit for maybe an AP bio class, seedlings, and a variety of ways in which the team really engages with schools. They have also upped their, accessibility to the broader community and family engagement. So there's a variety of resources available for professionals, schools, teachers that want to get involved in this in some way. And then we have free family farm hours. So everyone is invited to those. We really encourage people to come and check out what the farm has to offer. New things for this year, as I mentioned, we have 3 new food corps fellows that joined us. So this is very exciting. We have a new food and climate summit coming up for middle schoolers in 1 month, and then more family farm hours and school professional development sessions. So with that, I will close out and just highlight this great exhibit that the Baltimore Museum of Industry did, highlighting our food service staff. It's still in the North Avenue lobby and will be open until February 2024 at the Baltimore Museum of Industry. That's it.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and I would second your sentiments around the exhibit in the lobby of district offices as well as the exhibit at the Baltimore Museum of Industry. Commissioner Reed?
Thank you. That was concise, comprehensive, and educational. You did a good job with 34 pages. I mean, I wish people saw it. I mean, you had everything there. I guess I have 2 questions and 1 comment. I guess the comment is, I guess all 3 questions really. Okay, lunch activity's gone from 67% to 55%. You don't have to get back to me in this setting, but the question is why? Why we've gone from 67 to 55? The other is the family survey you had on, I think, page, I don't remember the page, but the family survey, roughly 10,000 families replied, and 20% said they weren't satisfied. And then you did another survey that said that students were 30% satisfied at one time, staff was 59% satisfied, and parents were 70% satisfied. So what it's saying to me is families were 20% satisfied and not satisfied. So therefore, kids appear to be less satisfied than their parents. So why are people not satisfied, that percentage not satisfied? And lastly, what traction are you getting? This is probably the most important for me, with the whole idea behind healthy habits. Are we getting traction? Because I still worry about kids coming into school with a soft drink and a bag of chips in their hand, looking for that after school more so than the fruit. I know that's a lot of stuff I threw at you, but I'm just worried about are we getting traction with the kids wanting to eat well?
Yeah, thank you. Those are great questions. Don't necessarily have all the answers, but I'll try. So the first one was on participation. And actually, let me see if I can find that slide. But basically, you're referencing the fact participation is still lower than it was before the pandemic. And that is true. I will say that these numbers look at the enrolled students. This does not account for attendance. So it does, and that does play a factor. If you have less kids in the building, you don't have the opportunity to feed them if they are not there. So with certain students, more absences that we have seen does play an impact in school meal uptake. That to me is the biggest factor. We also still have students that are engaged in virtual learning, and unfortunately, USDA meal programs are not set up at this point to support that. There is a pandemic EBT program, but by the nature of students being at home and learning virtually, it means they're not in the building and able to go down to the cafeteria to get a meal. So I will say that's not the only thing. I would say attendance plays a bigger role in that, and we have seen fewer students there, but these numbers really only look at enrollment, and I can certainly follow up with this against the overall attendance if you're interested in that view. The next thing that you said about the survey, so we had 10,000 responses, and this, I will say, these were different surveys and they were not asked in the same way. And the responses that are there reflect the responses from families, not necessarily from students. The past survey data is from 10 years ago. So I will say, the big thing to really kind of take away there, and we had that data for maybe about 3 years that was asked on the district's climate survey then. But we kind of saw those differences persist between what students say, what staff says, and what parents say. And, I think there's plenty of parents that can relate to the experience of offering a healthy meal to a child, but that child isn't necessarily excited about it. So, there's a different perspective and different priorities. If you are someone that is eating something versus you're not actually tasting it, you're just, maybe taking your own experience with it. The other thing with adults is we all tend to have some experience with the school meal program. And so we have those experiences that inform our own really opinion of it. We're not necessarily seeing the meals that are there every day. But kind of really leading to the last thing that you mentioned which is about like waste and are we making traction with healthy habits? I think that kids are just like adults. I think adults want to be eating healthier, but really do struggle with maintaining healthy eating habits. And so, when we have looked at food waste in the past, we found that the least wasted food item was our protein item, and our most wasted item was milk, which students don't have to take. So part of reducing milk waste is encouraging kids not to take milk if they don't want the milk. They only have to take that fruit or vegetable. But we actually, when we did that plate waste study, right after we started doing fresh fruits and vegetables every day, we saw that there wasn't a dramatic increase in the amount of food waste generated. And USDA has done their own extremely detailed surveys. It's called the USDA School Meal Cost Study, and I can certainly follow up with that link. But they've gone out to many school districts and measured the waste before and after the implementation of the 2010 Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, which really looked at having healthier school meals. And it found that kids weren't really wasting a whole lot more. But presentation has a lot to do with it. So if we have staff that do not cut up the oranges before serving them to kids, you're going to have more oranges in the trash can at the end of that lunch service. It is important for staff to cut those oranges or at least score them so students can easily peel them. And so really a lot of that really does come down to training and presentation and making it easy for kids to eat, because they usually don't have extremely long lunch periods. So I'll just end with saying we're doing a plate waste study currently, looking at food waste in our cafeterias and implementation of share tables, so that students can bring things home and how we are able to reduce waste. Some of that work, I will say, fell back during the pandemic just because we were serving more things that were individually packaged. And there were those sorts of concerns. So we're kind of going back now in the other direction too, where something like a share table can be used appropriately.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Coy.
Yes, first off, just thank you. I mean, the volume and the logistics that go into being the single longest restaurant in Baltimore City cannot be overstated. And as one with kids in the system, I really appreciate it. And I know, I talked to them about what they ate that day for food. One question that I do have a little bit on those lines is sometimes I notice the consistency between what is on the sort of menu and then what is served. Just curious, like, to what degree is there variation there? Is that school by school? Is there a difference between sort of charter or traditional schools? Just get a sense for, as you run all these logistics, to what degree the menu and then what is actually done, like how that transitions or changes.
Yeah, so we really do try to hold ourselves accountable to offering the same thing at every school. So really there is one menu. There is different portions with the K-8 and the high school students. So the high schoolers will have to have slightly more calories to meet the calorie minimums at that level and certain, minimum offerings, but there's no distinction in terms of charter or non-charter or anything else beyond like the lunch beyond the grade range of the school. So K-8 and high school, those are the differences. There are cases in which, say, the menued item might not be able to be prepared because a cafeteria manager experiences a shortage. So each week our staff will send out, maybe we'll get a shortage for, 50 schools for this certain item. And depending on, say, when is that item actually going to just ship a day later, or are we not getting it, period? We might advise that school just to switch up, maybe Tuesday and Thursday, because by Thursday you'll have that item. But you don't have it for service on Tuesday. But we really do try to adhere to what is served and the day it is served on, because we want parents to be able to use the menu and make decisions about what their children are, whether or not they're packing lunch for their student. We want students to be able to have that predictability. So really that is important. I will say it was extremely, extremely, extremely difficult when we reopened schools after the pandemic. It was very difficult. We hoped, generally things would get it, but getting 55,000 servings of a single menu item, takes a lot of space in someone's warehouse. And so we're competing against everyone else in terms of, that business. So it was very, very difficult. I will say now we're at the point where we are still experiencing some shortages, but for the most part, if you are seeing regular changes and what is offered on the menu is not what is offered at the school, that's kind of an issue that we need to examine and figure out what's happening there. But our staff really should know 3 days in advance whether or not they have the food on site. So they should know by Monday if they're not able to serve what's on the menu for Wednesday, because they should have just checked to make sure they have all the inventory and are beginning to look at the production for that. So at each school, they should be making updates to the posted menu in the cafeteria if there are substitutions. But yeah, so I would say, those are the big ways now. For the most part, the menu that is posted on the district's website should be the one that is followed.
Thank you. And really quickly, Liz, I'd be curious if, in the food and nutrition side of our house, if that is an opportunity to explore work-based study or youth apprenticeships for current students, for current high schoolers.
Yeah, there are actually some schools that do some things. There have been life skills programs in certain areas. Certainly our staff do, things like inventory. I would say the biggest thing to compete with is kind of, students' actual educational time, because we are running our operation during the school day. But there are certainly opportunities for overlap. With the farm, I will say we have a lot more, engagement with the culinary teams, just because actually offering this is very different from some of, say, the culinary recipes that students might want to be learning. But there is a review of the same My Plate and overview in the culinary programs, and our team has been engaged in the revision that is happening right now with the culinary team around the curriculum.
I was just thinking that would be a really interesting and, it just made sense to me that would be an area to explore for youth apprenticeships in-house, especially for culinary students to obtain entry-level credentials around what we're already doing as a system.
Absolutely. And if students graduate with those programs with their ServSafe certification, which many of them do, and it is required, then, that is the required minimum for a cafeteria manager position. So,
Look at pipeline. Look at that pipeline.
It is there. We have many, 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 many of our staff are products of the school system. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we can transition to the next presentation, which will be policy JFB, Student Enrollment Compliance Report. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Brandon Tillman. I serve as the Director of Enrollment Choice and Transfer. I'm joined by Deshina Robinson, who serves as the manager of our office, and we're here to present to you JFB's compliance report. JFB, just as a reminder, requires us annually to come before you to detail trend data on city schools enrollment, and also to talk about the number of students that entered the district in the previous year. So these numbers represent the enrollment data for school year 2022-23 and are based on the September 30th enrollment count, which includes all students regardless of their eligibility for state aid. What we will see here on the screen is that the enrollment account for pre-K through 12 was 75,995 students, which represents a slight decrease of 1,812 students, roughly 2.3% from our previous year, which would be 2021-22. We know that pre-K enrollment remained flat with a year-over-year increase of 1 student. However, what I will say about this particular number is that our official enrollment account was 318 students above what we projected by our financial consultants when we thought about kind of our projected enrollment for that particular year. So we did do better than we anticipated in terms of the numbers. Kind of when we look at kind of the grade breakdown, we will see that grade 9 had the largest decrease in enrollment accounts, decreasing by 810 students from the previous year. We also see that grade 10 had the highest percentage increase. And we attribute these changes with the increased retention rate for ninth grade that was in 2021 as a result of the grade change that resulted in fewer students being able to move on to the 10th grade. So we see these numbers as a result of that for that particular school year. Our grade band 9 through 12 increase had the greatest increase of 588 students for that particular year. As we go down, when we think about kind of our various groups, our different groups of students, we see that our Hispanic students and multilingual students continue to be the student groups with the largest enrollment increases. We see that our Hispanic enrollment rose by 810 students to 13,060 students, which is a 6.6 change from the previous year. And we also want to note that our Hispanic students are 17% of the district's enrollment as it relates to compared to the previous year. Which was 15 and 14. So that is our student group that is growing the most. We also want to recognize that we saw that our African-American enrollment decreased by 2,541 students, and our white enrollment decreased by 211 students as we go forward. We can keep going down a little bit. So this breakdown just identifies the breakdown that we have to provide to the state MSDE, which shows kind of the entry codes for each of our students. It totals kind of our, if we go down a little bit, where students are coming from, how they are entering, and kind of how we're coding them. And also it has some exit information as well. As a reflection, we see from the enrollment data our need to really focus on 3 areas. One is our ability to retain our current students, our ability to re-engage our students that have exited for whatever reason, and then our ability to recruit new students into the system. One thing that we have done since this particular year has been to launch a collaborative 930 kind of work group to kind of study our enrollment trends, to really know kind of where our students are coming from, where they're going, kind of areas that we need to work on as a district. And we know that enrollment impacts multiple different offices. So to really bring everybody together and kind of see how we can work together to really understand the data and to make proactive changes that will allow us to impact those 3 areas that I named. Another particular area that we're working on is really what is our district messaging to tell the good news, I guess you want to say, about city schools, what we are doing in our school communities, and just overall to promote some of the things that we have to really engage our students, our families in Baltimore City, and also kind of our community partners in this particular work. But last but not least, we know that schools, we've proven that our families respond the best when they are hearing directly from the school leaders in those particular school communities. So really working with some of our principals and assistant principals and really taking the proactive steps to kind of understand their own data as it relates to student enrollment and to kind of focus on how they can improve their school's visibility, how they can tell the messaging about their particular school communities, and really to just enhance their family engagement and community customer service efforts. And one partner that we have engaged with is our SchoolMint team that has come in to do professional development for each and every one of our school communities and to really partner with those schools that are struggling with some enrollment challenges to really help them as they move forward. And I can say, while we are focused specifically on 22-23 for this particular report, we have seen that some of the efforts that we have taken have kind of resulted in better data for this particular school year, which we will report out at a later time. That kind of concludes our trend data for the 22-23 school year.
Did we lose out? Oh, there she is. Okay.
I have an issue on the side. Can you all hear me?
Not too well.
Somebody. Can you hear me?
Andrew, you want to ask any questions before why?
Yeah, no, I think she's tossing it over to us. Yeah, your audio there cut out, was sort of garbled for a second, Commissioner Roberts. But I'm happy to ask one or two questions, or Commissioner Reed, if you want to ask one first.
You go ahead.
Yeah, so, and first off, thank you for compiling all this data and these insights. And I recognize that the compliance report is perhaps more retrospective, is looking back at sort of, and the final numbers from last year. Just understanding demographics of the country, right? Like what we are seeing as it relates to trends and school-age children, and the decrease, frankly, in the number of school-age children, which is not unique to Baltimore City, not unique in the state of Maryland. As you're looking at these numbers and seeing these changes, first off, I don't imagine that they are, if you were to do some comparison, they are that different from other areas. And what are you contemplating? I always look to the challenges section in any time of the compliance reports, thinking about like do we know what the challenges are? Are we naming what the challenges are? And do we have thoughts about how we're addressing those? And again, while this compliance report is focused more, I think, looking backwards, what I'm seeing in it is also we should be planning that the demographics are changing such that there will be decrease in student population in years in the future, right? Like that, like we should not anticipate otherwise, right? I guess, what are your thoughts as you were looking at this for forecasting? Not that I'm asking you to create a whole report on forecasting, but how are you thinking about that?
Sure. So I think one element that we have to kind of do an overlay upon is really looking at the decrease and really having a better understanding of the data as it relates to kind of the birth rates of Baltimore City. We know also there's been a population decrease. We know that several of our housing units in key areas of the city have been demolished, which resulted in some of those residents moving to neighboring LEAs. So really doing the kind of an overlay of those elements and seeing exactly how they impacted our data and will continue to impact our data. I will say that one hindrance or one challenge of this particular report is that it only is a snapshot of kind of our formal numbers as it relates of September 30th. If you visit my particular office right now, my office lobby is very busy. And that has been a trend that has been for us ever since the beginning of the year. We have not necessarily slowed down in the enrollment office. So while these numbers reflect what they reflect, that is not a true accurate of kind of a true picture of what we actually processed from that particular point of September 30th to now and throughout that particular school year. So we are seeing the efforts of our work around with our re-engagement center that is really doing a lot of work in re-engaging our students and kind of the touch points and kind of the partnerships that they form with different city agencies and other community nonprofits to really kind of engage our students and to bring them back in and get them back and re-enrolled. So I think that's one element. I think another element that I will speak to is kind of as we think about our multilingual students, the work of that office has been tremendous in terms of engaging that particular community. We see that they, right now, I think that they are on track as it relates to this year to have surpassed all of the number of students that they've enrolled by now, which was compared to the whole entire last year. So that is a office that is really making significant significant strides in kind of re-engaging students, also recruiting new students, and not just recruiting them into the system, but also kind of wrapping around them and supporting them as they are placed into different school communities. So certainly my office, while I'm here to kind of speak on behalf of the enrollment ecosystem, I represent one of the 6 enrollment offices that are really coming together to work collaboratively in ways that we have not done in the past, to really kind of dissect the data and really to think about what are the ways in which we partner with offices such as OAA, with offices such as the Whole Child Service and Support Unit, to really think about what things we can put in place for our children once we get them enrolled, and to kind of keep them enrolled and engaged with us, but then also to kind of use our other element of our Office of Community Engagement and Enrollment to really talk about how we engage our families and continue to keep them as partners with us in the academic success of their students.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I guess I have just want to be educated. I guess you can move down to I'm looking at grade 8 to 9 on, I guess, section 2. So in 8th grade, you have like roughly 5,500 kids for the 6,000 kids. And then in 9th grade, you get a bump. I guess my first question is, how do you get that bump? And I guess the more important and telling and concerning for me is you have 7,700 kids. Like you can go across the spectrum in terms of years. So you start with roughly 7,500, 8,000 kids in the 9th grade. At the end of the 4-year period, you end up with 4,000 kids. So my question to you, I see a lot of numbers in terms of the attrition rate and the graduation rate, but what's the real, based on person entering 9th grade, graduating in 12th grade, what's the real graduation rate for Baltimore City Public School students?
Well, I would have to get back to you on the graduation rate. That kind of focuses on the other end of the spectrum from my enrollment standpoint, but certainly we can, circle back and get that information for you. What I will start with the first question as it relates to kind of 9th grade, we always see that bump. As we think about our high school choice options, we see a significant number of families that are coming to us from private and parochial school after the 8th grade and are looking to kind of engage with us for many of our CTE pathways, for many of our interest criteria schools, communities in our various programs. So we always see a slight bump that's different than what we see in our other grade bands. So that attributes to kind of the jump that we have for our 9th grade entry of students.
Okay, so
Brandon, wait, hold on one second.
Okay,
I want to add to the answer to that question, sir.
Okay,
So
let me
also
let me make this point though. Okay, let's look at like the 8th grade, 9th grade, 2021-22. You have 8,500 kids. And then you move over to this year to the 10th grade, and you got 5,800 kids. Where'd those kids go and why?
So I'd like to jump in if I can, please. Thank you, sir. Part of the 9th grade bump also is repeating 9th grade students. So understand that high school credit now, it's not you matriculate each year based on the year you are in school. So students who have not completed their 9th grade credits in their 9th grade year remain 9th graders in this 930 enrollment count. Okay, so that is why you are seeing a large number of 9th grade. So Brandon was absolutely correct. We have a bunch of students coming in at 9th grade, which is actually great for the district. And we hope that that means we're increasing enrollment. But we also have a number of repeaters, and we don't have that data. We could ask academics to both get you a graduation more data as well as the repeater data to understand how many. But that's why you see such a large bump in the 9th grade year. And then as you go down to your point, Commissioner Reed, and the numbers, it's kids matriculating and moving through those numbers based on their credits. So it isn't, you just can't take a whole cohort of 9th graders and think they're going to go to 10th grade, or a whole cohort of 10th grade and they go to 11th grade. It is literally credit accumulation that allows a student to move through that process. So yes, as you see, we do have students that drop out once you turn 16. Students have the ability to drop out, which is why we have our re-engagement center, why we have alternative option programs and those kinds of things. But we do have the bump of 9 to 10 to 11, those kids could be any age. You could have a 17-year-old sitting in a 10th grade class, right? Because they had not received the credits to go to an 11th grade year. So that's why those numbers aren't as fluid as, say, pre-K through 8, they move up as a cohort. They move up unless they failed. But in 9th grade and 10th grade on through, you have to have credit accumulation to be able to move through those grades. Hope that's helpful.
I mean, it sounds like problematic in terms of, like you said, a 9th grader and a 17-year-old in 9th grade. The probability.
Well, and that's where
probability dropping is pretty high.
Well, and that's why we have our re-engagement center, because kids who are over age and undercredited, so you have to have 2 years, right, of age beyond where your credits are. Then you're eligible for our AOP programming run by Roger Shaw's office and those schools. And that way, those kids could do credit catch up. So they actually could graduate closer to on time, having gone through the AOP process.
But you still only end up with 4,000 kids at 12th grade.
True.
Okay. I just, I've seen graduation rates, and it seems like it's overstated in terms of the real graduation rate.
Well, we do have the 4-year cohort and the 5-year cohort of graduation rate as well, right? So 4-year is going 9 to 12 straight through. The 5 is we need an additional year to make up those credits. So we do have 2 graduation rates.
Okay, I'd like to see those. Thank you. Good presentation, thank you. I don't know where Madam Chair is. She had.
I think with internet issues, and I did get a text to ask for me to step in and help us as we move through. So anything else on this agenda item before we go to the next? Okay, I believe we have the summary compliance report. Is there to be any comments or presentation on that item?
I'm fine.
Which compliance report are you referring? Is it the fund balance?
The board policy DIG fund balance, yes.
Yes, okay. Excuse me, Jonathan, could you put that report up on the screen?
Yep, give me one moment, Marianne.
Thank you. So I can talk you through some of the background information. This is a compliance report for City Schools compliance with board policy DIG, which is our fund balance. City Schools is compliant also with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 54, fund balance reporting, and governmental fund type definitions. It's the GASB 54 indicates how we should report, how we should establish and report fund balances, and that's how you find it in our financial statements. So there are various types of classifications in the fund balance, actually GASB 54, going from more constrained in the use of the funds to the most unconstrained. The most constrained funding is non-spendable, which City Schools would include prepaid expenditures, deposits, certain types of inventory. The committed is City Schools reports 20 million. And of that 20 million, it's related to the City Schools Financial Recovery Plan from 2004, when City Schools went through a time of financial difficulty, and we had some cash flow problems. So this 20 million is held as an emergency reserve against cash flow issues. So it would take an action of the board to spend that. Assigned fund balance is where we put most of the fund balances. This for the general fund, which is all of the line items are noted in the City Schools financial statements, note 10, which indicates what the amounts are and what the related projects are for assigned fund balance. again, as a reminder, the CEO, as the board designee indicated in this board policy DIG, the CEO has the authority to place items in assigned fund balance. But when it comes time to spending it, then we request the board's approval to actually spend the money. So this assigned fund balance of 281.2 million includes money generally for, or the most predominant one is for capital projects type funds. There's spending gaps in the amounts that we receive from the state and local funds for some of our capital projects, depending on, the age of the buildings. We are restricted somewhat, and you can see there that we've got the Edmondson CTE move. We've got a construction gap for a Garrison, for City College, for Western and Poly. So this funding from the general fund provides much needed contribution to allow city schools to use the funds with our state and local to be able to complete the capital projects. So we also include money in here for things like additional air conditioning units, elevators, and systemic type expenditures as well, that the funding sources that we receive are not sufficient to meet the needs of the aged buildings, which we have. Now, the unassigned fund balance is it's the residual classification. This is what we do because it's fiscally prudent to set these funds aside. Okay, so that's really what this is. Other people call these types of funds other things. We call it in our board policy contingency. But that's for all unknown things. This is not for operating expenditures. They're for, very specific requirements, and those requirements are also called out for in GASB 54. So we not only establish it and report it that way, we're also in compliance with GASB 54. But the crux of the compliance reporting for the fund balance is exhibiting what our percentage of funds held in unassigned fund balance are compared to the general fund budget for the next year. We have a range, a target range of between 3 to 5 and then ultimately 7%. If we do not have 3%, if it's less than that, finance must propose a plan to get us to 3%. If the money exceeds 7%, then it is suggested that we expend those funds on one-time non-operational type expenditures. So the 3 to 5% is range is a target, not a mandate. So when we calculate the amount for FY 2023, the percentage was 5.9%, so it is within the target range. So City Schools is in compliance with GASB 54 and with the fund balance policy DIG. So are there any questions on that?
Commissioner Reed, any questions?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, I think the one sort of observation comment that I'll make is our earlier conversation was relating to the unassigned fund balance as a contingency for some of the health, right? I mean, that's it's for those type of situations. Correct.
Yes, and even after you take that 5 million expenditure into account, City Schools still has 5.5% of the next year's general fund budget in reserve as a contingency.
Yeah, no, and that makes, a lot of prudent sense and, appropriate fiscal management to do exactly as outlined here. Thank you for the report and for that information.
Thank you.
Any other items or any other things related to this item? Okay, moving on with the agenda, I believe we have no public comment signups, just verifying that is the case, and no additional items before we go to procurement. Dr. Junkins, anything there?
Nothing there. Correct.
Okay, so moving on to procurement, happy to cover those items with our remaining time.
Hi, my name's Katie Kamenecki, and I'm a contract administrator at City Schools, and I'll be giving the procurement ops agenda today. The first item we have is item 14.01, and the Chief Information Technology Officer is requesting the board's approval to increase the total contract amount for the provider ENA services from $480,198 to $620,198, which is an overall increase of $140,000. This contract term is through June 30th of 2025, and this is for the managed dedicated internet services.
And is E-rate funding sort of the source for some of these funds? Do you know by chance? I imagine it is, but it's not maybe as relevant to the expenditure funds, but curious if that is the source.
That would be a question for
The E-rate
ITO.
revenue is recorded as federal revenue in the general fund. So as we commingle our funds, you could say that that provides the, in addition to the overall budget, and we certainly do budget E-rate funds every year. But it's not specifically tied. You get this estimate for next year, you get that level of expenditures. We commingle our funds.
Okay, so it helps to offset, but it's not a direct source.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, go on. Yep.
The next items are under the Chief Operating Officer section. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to piggyback a competitively bid contract with Sourcewell. And this is for WW Granger Inc. to provide facilities, maintenance, repair, and operating related supplies. And this is a contract term of January 26th, 2024 through November 8th of 2026. And this includes 2 one-year renewal options. And this is an estimated annual contract amount of $500,000.
Any questions, Commissioner Reed? Okay.
The next item is an increase, and this is for vendor Rough Roofers to continue the project of the roof replacement at Benjamin Franklin building. This is an increase of $67,209, and this is the third increase for this contract.
Okay. You can go on, Katie.
The next item is the request for the board's approval of a competitively bid contract for 6 vendors who will be providing grass cutting services on an as-needed basis. This is an estimated annual contract amount of $1.2 million, and the contract term is January 10th, 2024 through January 9th of 2027, and this award includes 1 2-year renewal option.
I just one quick question. As needed, who decides that? Does it decide at the school level, or is that decided through Chief Washington's office? How's that decided? The need.
Good morning, Commissioner Reed. Roland Dale, Director of Logistics and Environmental Compliance. How are you, sir? So our scheduling, sir, used to be a 10-day cycle of all schools that were cut. It wasn't based on the school's request. It was already set aside, and we have a predetermined schedule. The increase, if there's a noted one, is because we have moved to a 7-day cycle. And that is because what we found is that, one, we can hold the contractors more accountable because we know the days that they have provided to us that they will do. And in the event that there is a rain day or something like that, inclement weather, they can adjust by a day. The second piece is that they will also, if there's redundancy related to some work that has not been completed, we'll have enough time to be able to identify it and make sure that we can keep aesthetic looks of buildings upkept or kept, to the standard that we request. So that's basically, I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we can continue.
The next item is a contract award of a competitively bid contract to CAM Construction in the total amount of $70,394,500. And this is for the renovation and addition construction at Armistead Gardens pre-K to 8.
Okay, continue.
Yep. This next one is for the board's approval of a competitively bid contract with multiple vendors to provide bioretention pond and plant bed site maintenance services to Baltimore City Public Schools on an as-needed basis. The estimated annual amount is $600,000, and the contract term is January 10th, 2024 through January 9th, 2027, and this includes 1 2-year renewal option. The last item is under the Chief Legal Officer section. The Chief Legal Officer and the Chief Human Capital Officer request the board's approval to extend and increase the contract term with Fragaman, Delrell, Benson, and Lowry, LLP. The board is requested to approve a contract extension through June 30th of 2026 and increase the estimated total contract amount from $50,000 to $1.5 million. And this is for the vendor to provide assistance in the preparation, submission, and response to H-1B visas on behalf of the district and other matters relating to immigration.
Yeah, you're answering some of my question there. I would like to hear maybe a little bit more relating to this one, because that is such a significant increase in this. I just want to understand sort of the full scope of that, what's driving that.
Sure. Hi, Commissioner Coy. Hi, Commissioners. So as you know, we have embarked on increasing our international teacher, especially recruitment, in the past year. This year, we hired 98 international teachers, most of whom were on J-1 visas, but we also relaunched our H-1B program, which this law firm Fragaman specifically supports. Costs about $5,000 in fees and preparation by the legal team to sponsor a teacher or another highly qualified professional for an H-1B visa. This past, or actually, I guess it's this current fiscal year, FY24, we had budgeted for 20 visas, $100,000 at that $5,000 per H-1 visa, thinking that it would be for this school year, but actually we're finding with the H-1B processing times, we need to do it a year in advance. So this year we have the fees for the teachers we hired on H-1Bs this year, as well as the new group that we're bringing in. We had a couple of team members who went to Kenya in November and recruited 75 math teachers. We're hoping to hire 60. Many of them will be on the H-1Bs instead of the J-1s, bringing their subject matter expertise and really interesting cultural background to city schools. This is a request for a 3-year agreement with this law firm. And we wanted to be on the high side of what we might need to ask for, not knowing exactly how we may expand international recruitment over the next few years. So what went when we relaunched this H-1B program as $100,000 a year has been incredibly popular. This year we're paying for 2 and wanted to make sure we were asking enough to cover any future increases without needing to come back to the board, is why is that high. I think we would be very challenged to actually use the full amount of this contract for our planned international recruitment over the next 3 years, though.
So this is a ceiling, and you're hoping to bring in roughly 100 new international teachers per year for the next 3 years. Is that what you're saying?
We actually may bring in more than that, but for the H-1Bs, it would be a max of 100 and actually across all staff groups. So like we sponsored a guidance counselor who was already working for us who needed to switch to an H-1B visa. We have a couple members of our IT team who are on H-1Bs. So that would be the max. We also have J-1 visas that we've applied to the U.S. Department of State, and our congressional delegation has been helpful in getting that application pushed along. So hopefully we'll be able to be our own J-1 visa sponsor. But in the past, we have worked with some J-1 visa sponsors that do require us to pay for that. So that will also be an element of our international teacher recruitment.
I know it's kind of tough because these are people and bodies, but how does one come up with a return on investment in terms of this type of investment or the investment overseas? How does one ascertain that?
So you're asking about the cost per teacher recruited?
No, well, there's a cost. We know the cost, but I guess is
Mhm.
what's the return on investment in terms of the teachers staying, the teachers making a difference versus just a teacher walking in the door? How does that work?
It's a little hard to capture the full financial value of a teacher. There have been some estimates of what happens when you lose a teacher, what it costs to replace them, that it's anywhere from like 50% to 150% of the teacher's salary to replace, especially a high performing teacher, when you go through all of the different elements of the recruitment efforts, the staff that you have to pay to recruit the teachers, the different programs. We do have a number of organic applications, and of course, besides staff time, things like, recruiting from local schools of education doesn't have that cost per teacher. But when you're looking at some of our residency and alternative certification programs, the cost of an international teacher to sponsor a visa is very comparable to what we're paying a program like BCTR or Teach for America for their recruitment and training of teachers. And so I think it's very hard to quantify the exact return on investment of a teacher, but it does cost thousands of dollars to recruit and select teachers in today's tight labor market. We're looking to also increase how many teachers we're growing our own, but that also comes with a cost because we're paying tuition reimbursement to help our staff who don't have bachelor's degrees earn them to be able to become degreed certified teachers.
Yeah, and I would also just add to that just to keep in mind that these positions are often filling hard to fill positions like math. Like, as Emily just said, that we identified 75 math teachers from Kenya. We can't, those are very hard positions to fill. So it's really the comparison, which also makes it complicated to quantify, but it is the comparison of having a vacancy or a sub often, because these are positions we otherwise probably would not fill. So it is just part of the complex recruiting strategy, and kudos to, I think, the team for really thinking through all the different ways that we can try to fill these gaps. And we have been we've hired more people last year than we ever had before. So it is working in the midst of a national teaching shortage. So we're not the only ones trying to figure out kind of all the ways in which to try to increase the number of resources we have to build out our teaching force. And this is one of them. So I think it's a great question. We should keep looking at it, Commissioner, and trying to make sure that what percentage of these teachers are staying and their efficacy. I think those are all good questions. And there tend to be filling math, science, like positions that we are not able to identify candidates for in the United States often.
And you ladies made a great point. A math teacher in the classroom versus who can teach versus a substitute that's just holding a chair means a lot, and you can't quantify that.
One additional question that I have relating to this, as you are contemplating the different international visa programs, to what extent would you say that the teachers are potentially coming from outside of the United States here for this purpose, and to what extent might they be currently pursuing, whether it's like finishing a degree and they have in education that they can then teach, that they are already in the United States, or they may be working in an adjacent field, and this is a visa that allows them to stay longer than what their other visa might. To what extent, I guess, are you seeing that breakdown, if you have insight into that?
Right now, most of them are people who we have recruited internationally, either on our own or with the help of a recruitment agency partner. We are seeing, though, and part of the need for this increase mid-year is that as principals have become aware that we are now sponsoring staff members for visas, we've had a number of staff of principals say, I have a staff member who I hired on an F visa, which is a student visa that allows them to work for a year or two after they graduate from their program. So they get hired on an F visa, they have work authorization, and then the work authorization expires or is coming up, and the principal wants to keep a great staff member. And so we get a request to put them on an H-1B instead. Because
Yeah.
they're not eligible for a J if they're in the United States.
Appreciate that additional insight. Thank you. This is the last item, I believe, on the procurement agenda. Any other items that need to be brought up?
Thanks, Commissioners.
Yep. Commissioner Reed, any last comments before we end call?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This is end of call.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you.